Okay, I think we're all set up here. So I would like to call this business meeting of the Kalamazoo City Commission to order for Monday, December 5th. I want to say a welcome to all my commissioner colleagues. Nice to have you here, and a warm welcome to everyone that has joined us in the chambers this evening, and everyone who is watching online. Our first order of business is the roll call. Clerk Burling.
Commissioner Decker.
Present.
Commissioner Hess.
Here.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Juarez. Present. Commissioner Pradel.
Present.
Vice Mayor Cooney. Present. Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Burling. We have a special individual here tonight for our invocation, and his name is Pradeep Sugdev. He has a PhD in aerospace engineering. He retired from academia 7 years ago. He's still active in professional organizations like the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, American Society of Mechanical Engineering, SAE International, American Society for Engineering Education, IEEE, Computer Society, etc. Impressive. He is a practicing Hindu priest for over 40 years, proficient in all major Hindu worships, rituals, and sacraments, from naming ceremony of a newborn to last rites. He is active at the Indo-American Cultural Center and Temple in Portage, working with a full-time priest for all major functions and as a backup in his absence. So I want to welcome Pradeep Sugdev to the podium for our comments this evening. I'll ask everyone to stand for the invocation, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson, for that kind introduction. I really appreciate that. And I do appreciate this opportunity to offer invocation at the meeting of the Kalamazoo City Commission. I'm getting used to doing this. I've been here a few times in the past. It is my great honor and high privilege to represent the Hindu community to offer the invocation for today's meeting of the Kalamazoo City Council. I have selected 3 peace invocations from our Vedas, the most ancient of our scriptures, and a final prayer for the well-being of the entire mankind. Following our Hindu practice, I will begin with a prayer to Lord Ganesha, the god with a face of an elephant, who is the remover of all obstacles in our path of good work and giver of happiness. I will also give an essential translation of all the original Sanskrit verses that I will recite here today. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvighnan Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. O God, with a curved trunk, a large body, and bright as millions of suns, please make all my undertakings always free of obstacles. Now, as we have experienced, the past few years have been very difficult for us and have impressed upon our minds the importance of total honesty, integrity, and transparency in our dealings, especially for those in high places making decisions not only for our own lives now, but also for the generations to come. Our rishis, seers, understood the importance of these untold thousands of years ago. This is reflected in the first Shanti part from the most ancient of our scriptures, the Rig Veda. The Shanti part is a prayer at the beginning and end of our spiritual study, and recited together by the Guru, the teacher, the preceptor, and the Shishya, the disciple, to create an environment of peace and harmony. Om Vang me manasi pratisthita Mano me vache pratishthitam Aviravirma edhi Vedasya ma'ani sthah Shutam me ma prahasihi अनेनाधीतेनाहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु मामवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. May my speech begin in my mind. May the depths of my mind be reflected in my speech. O Brahman, may you make yourself apparent to me. O mind and speech, may you give me the strength to understand the truths in the Vedas. May you bless me so that the truths of the Vedas that I hear will never escape or leave me. May I concentrate on my studies day and night. May I always meditate upon the truth. May I always speak about the truth. May the truth protect me. May the truth protect my teacher. May the truth protect me and my teacher. Again, may the truth protect my teacher. Om Apyayantu mamangani Vakpranashchakshustrotramatho balamindriyani cha sarvani Sarvam Brahmopanishadam Maham Brahmakura Niryam Mama Brahma Nirakaroda Nirakaranamastva Nirakaranam Mestu Tadatmani Nirateya Upanishatsu Dharmaste Mai Santu Te Mai Santu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Incidentally, this one is from the Samaved, another of the 4 of our Vedas. May all my senses, speech, breath, eyes, ears grow ever stronger. The Upanishads describe the Brahman, the universal spirit. May I never deny the existence of the universal spirit. And just as I may not deny the existence of the Brahman, may the Brahman not reject me either. May I become one with the universal spirit by assimilating the knowledge in the Upanishads. May I master all the virtues described in the Upanishads. The next one is from the Krishna branch of the Yajurveda. And this is also very important as we are embarking upon this meeting. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let Him, God, protect us. May He bless us with the bliss of knowledge. Let us exert together. May what we study be well studied. May we not hate each other. May we not quarrel with each other. And finally, we Hindus consider the entire earth as a single family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Vasudha is earth. Kutumbaka is family. Evam is the only family we have. And we can always relate to that. As such, we want everyone to be happy, healthy, and prosperous. This is reflected in this final prayer I am going to recite for you. Sarve bhavantu sukhinas, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. May everybody be happy. May everybody be free from disease. May everyone experience good fortune. May they never have to face sorrow. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Tvam Dhanyam Vadami. Thank you very much.
Thank you again to our invocator for getting us started here this evening. We do have a proclamation on our agenda for this evening. Is Professor Onur, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this wrong, but I'll take a Arugazian? Thank you very much. Come forward, and Vice Mayor Cooney is going to read it, and I will go down with the proclamation. We are celebrating today World Turkish Coffee Culture Day.
Whereas thousands of Turkish Americans make Michigan their home, and whereas Turkish Americans in the southeast Michigan area contribute culturally, socially, and economically to the local community through civic engagement and cross-cultural communication. And whereas 500-year-old Turkish coffee culture has symbolized love, peace, hospitality, and friendship for centuries, and whereas Turkish coffee is the world's first coffee brewing technique and coffee culture was spread from Istanbul, Turkey to Europe in the 17th century and America later, and whereas Turkish coffee was admitted to UNESCO's World Heritage List as a cultural inheritance that has been protected on December the 5th, 2013. And whereas Turkish Americans throughout Michigan will recognize December 5th as the World Turkish Coffee Culture Day, bridging cultures through coffee conversations. And now, therefore, on behalf of the 54th City Commission, Mayor David Anderson, we hereby proclaim the 5th day of December 2022 as World Turkish Coffee Culture Day, and encourage all its citizens to join us in recognizing the importance of this event.
As a Turkish American, I'd like to thank Mayor Anderson and the City Commission and the whole city of Kalamazoo for this proclamation. I am a finance professor at Western Michigan University. I am also a newly elected member of Maravan Consolidated Schools Board of Education. And I drink 1 cup of Turkish coffee every morning. That's the highlight of my day. And I would strongly recommend that every one of you try Turkish coffee at some point in time. Thank you.
I had been under the impression that we were each going to get a cup of coffee as part of that. Evidently, a little miscommunication there. Well, so now we're down to our regular agenda items. First item is adoption of the formal agenda. Commissioners, you have the agenda in front of you. Any changes you'd like to see in the agenda? Commissioner Decker.
Excuse me, yes. Can we move item number 6?
Item G6.
G6.
That is the grant amount of $1 million, and you want that moved to the regular agenda, H?
Yes, please.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioners? Is there anyone here in the chambers who would like to see an item moved from the regular agenda, from the consent agenda, which is G, to the regular agenda? H, there we go. Anyone? All right, agenda stands then. Manager Witzma, any communications?
Yes, I would like to invite folks to our budget work session next Monday, the 12th. It will be held from 5 to 8 p.m. here in the City Commission chambers. Thank you.
We're supposed to turn these on and off all the time now, so I'm going to have a little problem this evening. Next on our agenda is an opportunity for public comments. So we'll start with individuals who are here in the chambers who'd like to make a public comment. You will have 3 minutes. You can come up to the podium. If you would like, you can write your name down here so we make sure we have that. Please state your name and whether you live in the city.
Hello, my name is Wendy Fields. I do live in the city of Kalamazoo. I'm also the president of the Kalamazoo branch of the NAACP. And would just like to, again, revisit our mission as an organization. The mission of the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, is to ensure the political, educational, social, and economic equality of rights of all persons and to eliminate racial hatred and racial discrimination. So I stand again before you in regards to Chief Coakley, and again, we're demanding an update. This has been going on way too long. I think we're going to the 5th month, and we've heard nothing. We've heard nothing. We've heard rumors. We've gotten comments, and those I will be sharing with you. But it talks about strategy on your part as a way of trying to get him to quit, push him out, that kind of thing. It's not going to happen. So as a commission, I hold each and every one of you accountable to hold the city manager accountable. That's your job. And that's what we expect and want from you all. We've heard other complaints from other employees. That information is going to come too about the systemic racism within the organization and the practices of city government. So you can look forward to hearing more of those things. Again, if we're looking at Kalamazoo through a lens of equity, transparency, it's more than just words. It's more than just words. It is actions. The other thing I don't know, so if this is not the time, you can shake your head and I'll come back up here, but it's in regards to the candidates that I had the opportunity to meet through the meet and greet that are vying for the position of the city attorney. Is this the appropriate time to make a comment? Okay. So I had the opportunity to meet the 3 of them, heard them in their interviews, and I'm just going to say this. My recommendation, my suggestion is for Mr. Porter. Some of you I've spoken with, others I have not, but because of my interactions with the others and things that I heard, I don't necessarily think the other 2 candidates are a perfect fit for Kalamazoo, looking at what we are as an organization saying we are looking to move towards in a more equitable manner. So I support Mr. Porter if this commission is not going to go back to the drawing board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Hello, Mayor Anderson, City Manager Ritzema, City Commission. I greet you. My name is Pamela Rowland. I reside at 1321 Cobb Avenue here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm a lifelong resident. I'm a former City of Kalamazoo employee from 1973 to 1988. I worked within many departments. I'm also here to seeking answers as to the status of the situation with our chief of police. I know him personally, I know him professionally. I know him as being a man of integrity and dignity. In 5 months, we definitely need answers as to what's going on. When I say I was a City of Kalamazoo from 73 until 1988, I endured discrimination beyond measure. And what hurts me so much today is the same practices that were taking place they continue on today. I don't know if it's become more blatant or what. I don't know what's going on with human resources, where I think they have too much latitude. They are interfering with personal lives of some of your City of Kalamazoo employees. I do not believe that you, as a commission, recognize the authority that is taking place within this Human Resources Department, but I hold the city managers and you accountable for what's going on. I'm not just talking, this is not the place for me to go into detail, but personally, I know personally that some of our African American men, particularly, are enduring a lot of discriminatory practices. And when is it going to end? I implore you to take a deep look within inside what's going on within your Human Resources Department. And in addition to that, I think where we're accusing these black men of harassment, and when they become unfounded, what is being done with those employees that are bringing forth these allegations? I know that some of the black men have been put on administrative leave. This is a practice that has been going on for quite some time. And I would like to talk more in detail. I see I have 10 seconds here. But City of Kalamazoo, I think it's time for Michigan Civil Rights Commission to come in and to take a look at what's going on.
Thank you. Yes, next, please.
Good evening, Mayor Anderson, City Manager, Commissioners. My name is William Rowland, and I too came to the evening to express some concerns about some things in our community. I'm a 30-year retiree of the City of Kalamazoo since June of 2010. I've been retired, my 13th year of retirement. During that time, I served in several capacities. Employee, I served as the president of the AFSCME labor union for several years. I had retired as a manager within the Public Services Department. One of the things that I wanted to expound on, a couple of familiar faces, Mayor Cooney, Commissioner Cooney, Vice Mayor, and Mr. Chamberlain were here during that time. A couple of familiar faces I do remember. In the early 1990s, we started something called the Kalamazoo African American Employees Association. It was recognized right here at the Commission to talk about some of the things that they've just finished talking about. Some of the concerns we were talking about, disparity in employment opportunities, recruitment, hiring, promotion, and even being in the process where you're making some decisions, the evaluations of others. There were very few at that time. At that time in public services, I was one of two. The former Deputy City Manager Jerry Barnett Moore was the other that was involved with the evaluations of employees in that whole process. And we talked about that, how disparaging that was for an organization this size to have, outside of public safety, 2 African Americans in the organization within public services, 1 in Metro Transit, and it was just horrible with all the things we were hearing and seeing. There were several reports that were generated as a result of some of those concerns, one being the Karras report. I applied for this recently through FOIA. It took me quite a while to get it, quite expensive to get also. Once I got it, there was a conclusion page, Dr. Juan Harakovic from Western Michigan University, who was commissioned by then HR Director Doreen Brinson. That was not the organization we wanted to go with. We wanted to go with someone out of Plymouth, Michigan, and they chose to do otherwise. His report was very thorough, however, but the conclusion and recommendations was missing from the report when I got it. There's another one, an NAAC branch report that was from in 1997. It was very credible. Your former mayor, Robert B. Jones, Attorney Alexander Lipsey, and Dr. J. Lewis Felton were the presidents and assistant and first vice president and second vice president at that time. Very conclusive report. Who's responsible for making sure that these reports that you pay for and that you get stay current as you change? The information goes away, and we're doing a repetitive constantly. Somebody should be the keeper to know what's happening in the organization, what we've committed to. That was some commitments made to in that report 1997. This commission and every other commission that follows you needs to be familiar with, because you made some commitments to people and you've not honored those things. And when you do that, it puts us right back here in the same situation. Every 10 years, we're going through the cycle. You're paying for stuff. I mean, we've got something right now that you recently paid for, report, even one we're doing the chief. If it doesn't put into practice and don't apply it, in just a short time, we'll repeat these things because we'll go through it, because nobody that replaces you seems to know that these things are out here, and therefore the commitments go away. We as citizens don't go away.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Is there anyone else in the chambers that wants to provide some comments for our business meeting this evening? Seeing no one, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, has anybody called in with comments?
We'll go ahead and check.
I'll tell you what, while you're checking, I just want to remind people the call-in number. Dig it out here. Thank you, Attorney Robinson. It is 888-382-9556. And you can call in now through the end of public comment period.
Hi, go ahead. You're with the Kalamazoo City Commission.
Yes, this is Audrey Seilheimer. I'm a mother of two in Kalamazoo. I'm calling in regards to your meeting this evening with the Committee of the Whole prior to this commission meeting, where you talked about sustainability, core services, budgeting for drinking water fund, wastewater plant, and I just wondered if air is on your list. With multiple Superfund sites being remediated from toxic PCB chemicals, which are forever chemicals, like PFAS, are you budgeting for public awareness of these conditions? Has the city employed a public health environment clinical supervisor to make recommendations on brain development of promised children and public health outreach toward increased safety in coordination with Kalamazoo County while waiting for the state? Has the city advanced a proposed supplemental plan through EAGLE for graphic packaging to immediately fund and implement something while working to reduce the emission impacts? While these kids are being raised in areas of the city with air and water exposure rates to increasing environmental toxins, the staff could study and measure possible correlations between violence and crime and historic real estate redlining and poverty with health impacts. As housing experts, you could speak to this. Do you have staff time budgeted for this in 2023? Please give residents an update of your work. Last week, Mayor Anderson summed up Kalamazoo as, quote, opportunity land as a one-word description for Kalamazoo. Opportunity for builders and contractors and entrepreneurs and education, but is there opportunity for better health, for lessening harm to human life? If you can't sincerely work towards this with all of your expertise, you're just more hype men with cheap microphones, playing Monopoly. I'm asking you, you are all impressive leaders and individuals, but are you going to fail to prioritize this right now? Please get Julie Rogers, State Representative Julie Rogers' statement. Consider it, and please speak and make comment on the situation ongoing with graphic packaging in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Thank you.
Hi, go ahead. You're with the Kalamazoo City Commission.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Rochelle Habeck, and I am a resident of Kalamazoo. I had the opportunity to attend the interviews with your candidates for the position of city attorney and sent an email to you all with some observations to share. What I would just like to say tonight as you deliberate your decision, one is that I'm sorry that the information was not made available on the website that I could find, which included the summary of references that were obtained. It's obviously a tremendously important position. The interpersonal skills and qualities of that person are tremendously important, and is difficult in our limited contact to assess those things. And obviously, paper credentials answer some questions, but not others. So I hope that you will make that available and that you are including these aspects in your deliberations. The main concern I have, and the reason I bring that up, these are obviously very qualified people, all in municipal law, but despite the material in the recruitment brochure, which talked about how important diversity, equity, and inclusion and anti-racism are to us now in this community, none of the candidates were prepared or able to talk in a meaningful way about their own capacity, their own preparation, their own commitment to their own growth, to be able to lead within their department and to function in their role with an anti-racist lens. We've moved in some areas in ways that can tackle some of the structural and systemic ways that racism are continuing to disadvantage the same people in our community. And it will require all of the leaders in our city government to take a deep dive and to grow tremendously in this area to be able to lead us toward the kind of structural changes that we need. It requires deep, long learning. And as a white person, I encourage you to really consider this as a commitment that you would require of the candidate that you offer this position to. From what we were offered, I think that this is an area of professional and personal development that needs to be addressed by whoever takes this role. Thank you for your time, and I wish you wisdom in your deliberations.
That was the last call.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain. I want to thank everyone that took the time and made the effort to either come to the chambers or call in with comments this evening. Next on our agenda is our consent agenda. Manager Ritzma.
We have the following items presented for approval this evening. First is the adoption of the schedule of regular City Commission meetings for the 2023 calendar year. Next is the adoption of a resolution setting a public hearing on January 3, 2023 to consider the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget for the City of Kalamazoo. And 3, adoption of a revised resolution approving a payment in lieu of taxes for 1211 South Westnedge Avenue, LLC, otherwise known as the Lodge House, a Michigan limited liability company that was formed with the sole purpose of owning the property at 1211 South Westnedge Avenue, Kalamazoo, Michigan, 49008, and whose sole member is the Lift Foundation, for said address pursuant to Section 35-4 of the Kalamazoo City Code. Next is the adoption of resolutions number 1 through 3 for the purpose of approving the 2021 Kalamazoo Mall Sidewalk Maintenance Assessment at a per front foot cost of $13.57. And adoption of a resolution number 3 schedules a public hearing for January 3, 2023. Next is the adoption of a resolution authorizing the city to submit a Spark grant application to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources for approximately $815,000 to make recreation improvements to Emerald Park with a city commitment of $200,000 in matching funding. And finally, the approval of the mayor's appointments and reappointments to the following boards and commissions. The appointment of Taureen Greeley to the Economic Development Corporation and Brownfield Redevelopment Authority boards of directors for a term expiring on March 31, 2028. Next, the appointment of Christy Brysach to the Historic District Commission for a term expiring on January 1, 2026. Next, the reappointment of Aaron Fuller to the Natural Features Protection Review Board for a term expiring on March 31, 2025. Next, the reappointment of Mitchell Latow to the Natural Features Protection Review Board for a term expiring on March 31, 2025. And finally, the appointment of Kyle Martin to the Natural Features Protection Review Board for a term expiring on March 31, 2025.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. So Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve items 1 through 5 and item 7 and authorize the city manager to sign all related documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Hess. Any discussion? No discussion. We're just ready to go, right? All right. Clerk Bowling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, however, I'm abstaining on item G3 as I'm a member of the LIFT Foundation.
And Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Now we're down to our regular agenda. First is item H1. City Manager Ritzma.
Approval of a service agreement with the Upjohn Institute for Employment Research in the amount of $285,000 from the Light Grant Fund for continued support of the community data system, approval of a budget amendment, and authorize the city manager to sign all documents related to this agreement.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Is there a staff report on this item?
Yes, we've got folks here this evening from the Upjohn Institute that are going to give a brief presentation.
Welcome, Upjohn Institute friends. Appreciate you having you here. Would you mind introducing yourselves before you get started?
Certainly, we'd be happy to. My name is Val Gipper.
Yeah, Lee Adams, Director of Community Development.
Thank you so much, City Commission and Mayor, for having us here tonight. I am a research analyst at the W.E. Upjohn Institute for Employment Research, and when I was brought on at the Upjohn Institute in June of this year, I inherited the Community Data System. The Community Data System is a project that's funded through the City of Kalamazoo that seeks to track intergenerational poverty within the city, as well as identify pathways out of that poverty for our city's residents. Just as some brief background here, as the name would imply, it is indeed a collaborative effort. No one organization on their own can truly understand all the facets of intergenerational poverty. So we're very fortunate to partner with these fine organizations that you see displayed here. In fact, the community data system wouldn't exist without our community partners. It is through these community partners that we gather data, inform programming, and launch new research initiatives. For some additional background, I'd like to set the scene on a problem that I believe we're all too familiar with. About a third of the children in the city of Kalamazoo are born into poverty, and as those children age and become adults, roughly 40% of them remain in poverty. This is a heartbreaking cycle, and it's especially true for our Black children in the city, who we know are twice as likely as compared to their white counterparts to be born into poverty in our city. So with these facts on the ground, our project takes a particular interest in looking at intergenerational poverty through a lens of systemic racism, which we know to be a particularly important factor in this effort. So with these facts, where do we begin? How do we start our work? Well, our goal of the community data system is to use the data in the community data system to assist local nonprofits and decision makers in helping to plot those trajectories out of poverty for our city's residents. We have had a strong start to this project, and we certainly intend to continue. We're interested in seeing where this project will develop by creating new partnerships and also by meeting the needs and the interests of the city as those are evolving and changing. So when I'm talking about the data in the community data system, this is what I'm describing here. We seek to track as many Kalamazoo residents as we can in a longitudinal manner on that life spectrum from cradle to career through that spectrum of life experiences. I'll just briefly describe a few of our core data sets. Beginning there on the left end of the spectrum, you can see sort of that cradle element of our data tracking, where we're fortunate through a partnership with WMed to have information on birth and death through vital statistics at the state of Michigan. This gives us an important picture into what's happening in a particular child's home in terms of their health and family circumstances. In that middle part of the spectrum, we're fortunate to receive data from a fruitful partnership with Kalamazoo Public Schools, where we get information from students on many things, including, for instance, attendance rates, free and reduced lunch price status, and including things like outcomes such as test scores or high school graduation. Last on the spectrum, but certainly not least, is information that we're fortunate to receive from the Kalamazoo Promise. This helps paint a picture for us of what those students are doing after that K-12 time in life, what their post-secondary career looks like, whether they are enrolling in an institution and earning a degree. There's a lot that we could get into here, but I'll just suffice it to say I'd like to plug the image there that you might see at the bottom right. I strongly encourage you to take me up on my offer. Please reach out to me at gipper@upjohn.org so that I can email you an updated copy of our data dictionary so you can observe for yourself what particular metrics we're tracking on residents. So before I launch into a particular research example, I'd just like to sum up about the data system itself. And you see a few adjectives listed there, and in the interest of time, I won't touch on each one, although the data system is certainly all of these things. But the one that I think I would like to pause on and make sure we give mention to is the security of this data system. This is a safe data set. This database only exists on secure servers hosted at Upjohn that are password protected and only accessible through an honest broker. I play the role of honest broker, mediating access to selected information for researchers who are seeking to analyze particular effectiveness for various pathways or interventions out of poverty. And with that, I'd like to take these broad and abstract, perhaps, things I've been saying about the data system and ground it in a concrete research example. I'd like to make note that really these slides would be best presented by our friend and colleague, Dr. Kathy Katari. She unfortunately couldn't be here tonight as she is on the road, so I will do my best to fill in for her. But just a little of her background. She is the senior epidemiologist at Cradle Kalamazoo, as well as an associate professor of population health at WMed. She partners with the community data system hosted at Upjohn in order to perform analysis on birth outcomes, which is her particular area of interest. So before Cradle Kalamazoo was partnering with the community data system at Upjohn, they already knew quite a bit. They performed research internally, particularly research around the racial disparities that we know exist within our county, as it's a county-focused entity. And of course, they view those through the lens of infant outcomes, as that's their particular interest. One of the things that they researched and found before coming to us is the marked difference in infant mortality rates between babies of color in our county and their white counterparts. We noticed that babies of color are dying at almost a rate almost 4 times as high as that of their white neighbors. It is also worth mentioning here that among families in Kalamazoo County having babies, among families of color in Kalamazoo County having babies, about 85% of those are black families. So that's worth noting and keeping in mind as we move forward. So given this marked difference here between our infant mortality rates, Cradle Kalamazoo said, well, what's going on here? What's behind this obvious disparity? Well, in their own research, what they were able to find is that families of color are disproportionately experiencing poverty in our county, as witnessed by about 2/3 of mothers of color financing that birth at the hospital through Medicaid, as opposed to only 30% of white mothers doing the same. They also found that regardless of that family of color's income, they had a significantly greater chance of reporting discrimination in our county. So it's these factors that tend to be associated with poor birth outcomes, premature birth, lower birth weight, and being more likely to find themselves in circumstances of unsafe sleep. And it's these conditions in a baby's life that put them at risk of infant mortality. So what Cradle Kalamazoo wanted to know is, what are we going to do about this? Given this obvious disparity for our most vulnerable residents, our infants, what programs are out there that we can tap into and make use of now to try to close this marked gap? So they were particularly interested in home visitation programs. A home visitation program is something that exists in many places in the U.S. It's something where a community health worker or a nurse might schedule to meet regularly with a family so that they can provide counseling and support during the time of a pregnancy within that family, connect that family to resources as needed, and advocate, particularly in terms of their housing situation. So what Cradle Kalamazoo was interested in is, given that we have these prenatal programs, home visitation programs existing here in Kalamazoo County, are they effective here? Are they effective for our residents? And more than that, for whom are they most effective? Again, how can we close that gap? So that is where the community data system came in. Dr. Katari and her team at Cradle Kalamazoo partnered with the community data system. They already kept a rich database of families and mothers enrolled in this home visitation program, along with information around their referrals and their attendance at these meets. We were able to take that rich data set that they had using for their own research and link it into the community data system, that birth and death data set from Vital Statistics I was referencing earlier, which helped to produce those outcomes of interest, looking at that treatment of home visitation. How is that influencing the outcomes for this baby in terms of its birth weight and its gestation length? We were able to create a quasi-experimental study, so we took women who were enrolled in that home visitation program and matched them to similar women who were similar on race, on age, on neighborhood of residence, on socioeconomic status, and so on, but who were otherwise unenrolled, and compare the outcomes. And what we found was that indeed those home visitation programs are effective in Kalamazoo County. We did see among mothers who were participating increased birth weights and increased gestation lengths, ultimately improving outcomes for their babies. But more importantly than that, it was also effective specifically for low-income families and families of color. Cradle Kalamazoo was a happy partner of the community data system in two ways. Not only did they get a specific answer to the question that they had sought, but now they also have research backed up by the expertise at Upjohn that they can take to local decision makers, their own leadership, and advocate for their program to receive additional funding and support to try to make this program more widespread and to allow access for all women and families in our community, and increase the instance of referrals to this program, especially for families for whom it would make the biggest impact. So with that, I'll conclude my research example here and return to the community data system. So I'm here tonight because the Upjohn Institute has proposed a 2-year contract extension for the purpose of funding the community data system. And I'd just like to briefly note some of those things we're seeking to do with that funding in the next 2 years. Naturally, we want to maintain and expand the database by bringing in more community partners, as well as improving our supplementary documents, like the data dictionary, like our network of data sharing agreements. We seek to continue to produce and disseminate academic research, much like the example I was just sharing with Dr. Katari and Cradle Kalamazoo. And lastly, but perhaps dearest to our heart, is perform policy analysis for the community, by which I mean we're seeking to operationalize this database. We'd like for researchers and decision makers to have easier means of accessing this information through the honest broker, so that they can find answers to the questions that they might be seeking, and information for their own interest. So with that concludes my formal presentation, and I thank you very much for having us here tonight. We're fortunate for your time. But I'd like to make a moment for any questions or comments that the commission may have.
Well, first of all, thank you very, very much for coming down here. A lot of information to walk through, and I think you helped by the way that you walked through it here and clearly explaining what was in front of us this evening. Questions? Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. That was really very, very helpful. I have two questions. One is part of your research looking at best practices around the country?
We have, as this work began in 2018, we did seek out other communities who were doing something similar to inform our own work. I think that my colleague Lee might be able to speak to that as well, but we found that our program is somewhat unique in Kalamazoo here.
Yeah, and in terms of the community data system itself, it is fairly unique, especially for a mid-sized city of Kalamazoo size. There's similar programs done on a national scale or for larger cities. But what we want to do once we learn some things from the data system is seek out those best practices to try to address some of the issues that we find.
Okay.
So it's kind of it's both.
Thank you. So your presentation really whet my appetite. And you said we could sit down and talk with you. Would you please give me again the connection where we could make appointment to come and see you?
Please, I'd be happy to take further questions or discuss this matter as the commission is interested in it. I'm best at checking my email, so I encourage you to reach out to me at my work email. That's Gipper, my last name, GIPPER, @upjohn.org.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Other questions, commissioners?
I had one.
Yeah, Commissioner Hess.
I think you just said it, but you've been doing this work since 2018?
Although the data system has been in the planning and building phases since 2018, I was fortunate to find work with the Upjohn Institute in June of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So I'll say we had started this work in 2018. A lot of the work prior to the 2-year extension that we're seeking has been building the database, which is a bigger undertaking than we originally estimated in 2018. So now we're really hoping to operationalize the database and have some impact in the community. So it's just not sitting on a shelf, but we want it to live and breathe in the community and have some sort of meaningful impact.
Thank you very much. Once again, we are actually very, very lucky to have W.E. Upjohn Institute here in Kalamazoo, a modest-sized community and a nationally recognized organization here doing that work. And we're very proud and happy to have you be doing that work, with us in the city. Just as a reminder here is that we received a grant to fund this work in large measure, and this funding is still coming from that grant, although I think this pretty much depletes it for the most part at this point. Yep. So anyway, I'm happy that there's still some money left to keep this very important work going. And I agree that with Vice Mayor Cooney, now we will have the opportunity to look for best practice and also evaluate our own actions and what is most effective and what we should be supporting here at Kalamazoo. So I appreciate that. That's really obviously, that's the reason we're doing this, so appreciate it. Commissioner Decker?
Thank you, Mayor. Just kind of going to what the mayor just said. So what is being requested is the last funds of the $1 million grant. Is that correct? How do you guys foresee yourself sustaining this in the future, this work?
Yeah, so this is a big part of us trying to build the impact in the community. We want to show and demonstrate the value of this work. So obviously we've subsidized, the Upjohn Institute has subsidized a large amount of the cost of this. The grant that comes from Dr. Light and through the city is probably about 25% of the overall cost. So we would seek additional funds to help offset that hole in the budget going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hess.
First of all, gratitude to Dr. Light for being so generous in this endeavor. I recall was it in the 80s when Dr. Art James first brought this issue of infant mortality to us in Kalamazoo, to doctors in Kalamazoo, and to know that it's taken this long, a generation, to be able to get to this point where we can have the data to make such an impact. So trusting in the process and hope we're getting closer to an answer.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Any other questions for W.E. Upjohn team here? All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Now is the opportunity for anyone in the audience who'd like to comment on this item. That's item H1. Please come to the podium, give us your name and whether you live in the city. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Anyone wanting to comment on item H1?
Well, oh, was
Yes.
that them or us? Them.
Hi, Wendy Fields again. As one who worked for Kalamazoo County government for 40 years, this is not new information. It's just simply, it's not. Dr. Kathy Katari has collected data on this forever. The YWCA started Cradle before it went to Bronson. And all I'm saying is, while the data is good, it is not new. It's there. What was presented could be found before this presentation because we've been doing it for years. And you're right, Dr. Arthur James was one of the ones that started it. I worked in Healthy Babies, Healthy Start and a couple other home visitation programs. And if you check your data, even in the 90s, there was a dip in infant mortality because of what was being done. There's also been some other organizations and some other best practices that they have looked at. And all I'm saying is, check your background, know your information, because this is not new. It is well overdue, and the numbers should be different. And so when you're talking about the bottom of what's going on here, it's racism. It has been clearly pointed out. It has been shown. Dr. Arthur James talked about that 20, 30 years ago, and yet we're still doing the same thing. Check your information. The data is available. I would strongly encourage you, implore you to talk to Kathy Katari, Grace Lumwama. This is not new information. So while we're sending money out, make sure it's money that needs to be well spent. It should be well spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wanting to comment on item H1? Seeing no one else, the recommended action is a motion to approve the agreement. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Cooney,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Decker. Discussion. Commissioners? Commissioner Pradel.
I appreciate the presentation. I appreciate that that we as a community are doing this work. I want to really uplift Cradle Kalamazoo as part of this equation too. In my day job, I have been immeasurably impressed by the work that the YWCA and Cradle are doing with Cradle Kalamazoo. There's even a group that meets, I think it's every Thursday, where all the practitioners that have all to do with work and intervention strategies and whatnot meet to collaborate, talk about resources, try to help find people resources. Absolutely incredible. And to me, when you think about the well-being of a community, there's no better temperature for the well-being of our community than when you look at the infant mortality rate and the well-being of our smallest, most vulnerable young people. So I'm with you, Wendy, and continuing to do this work, and appreciate your comments.
Other discussion, Commissioners? Vice Mayor Cooney? No? Okay. All right, seeing none at this time, just, I guess I will say this, is that entirely accurate a statement. There's nothing new about this information. Cradle Kalamazoo has been doing this work. This has been a community discussion for a long time. I guess my interest in continuing with this work with W.E. Upjohn that is funded in some measure anyway through the grant from Light is that this is one component of an entire spectrum of things that we need to look at. And so this is not just and only focused on this particular item, as important as it is, but what we're building and hopefully going to have in a more sophisticated and helpful way is a breadth of information all the way across the spectrum we're looking at, because we're talking about looking from cradle to career, and there are many, many points along that line that this effort is being made to find best practices in a variety of areas. as it relates to the work of W.E. Upjohn and their report. So that's the work they're doing. Clerk Boyle, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The agreement is approved. Next is item H2, Manager Ritzma.
First reading of an ordinance to amend Article 3 of Chapter 15 of the Kalamazoo City Code, Fire Prevention and Protection, to adopt the 2021 edition of the International Fire Code.
Manager Ritzma, is there a report on this?
We do have public safety staff here to answer any questions. Would you like to talk?
Scott?
Scott?
Good evening. Fire Marshal Brooks, Kalamazoo Public Safety. I'm here to address any questions that the commission may have in reference to adopting the 2021 Fire Code.
It would be helpful is if you just give a very brief, okay, why are we adopting this now, and how does that happen, and why is that an important action for us to take?
So the fire code comes around every 3 years. This code is the 2021 code. We currently are in the 2018 code. I started the discussion with the city attorney's office several months ago. City attorney went off on medical leave, on maternity leave, and other things happened, so this is the reason why we're adopting it now. The idea to keep current with all of the fire code is so that anytime a new builder, a new designer, somebody comes to the city, that we're working with the most current code so that any designs or anything else like that can meet the standards that are across the country that have been adopted by the International Code Council.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any questions on this item? All right, seeing none at this point, is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this item?
Good evening. Jeff Messer, city resident. The last time the city commission touched the fire code, it was to legalize recreational fires. Previously, the city ordinance didn't specifically permit you to have a fire in your backyard. Although, I mean, I would argue if the city ordinance doesn't specifically prohibit it, then it's allowed. Just keep that in mind, people. The city, the law, does not specifically prohibit it. You can do it regardless of whatever anyone else says. But anyway, the city did officially legalize recreational fires at single-family and two-family residences. However, they implemented a permit requirement for multifamily homes. And I opposed that because I figured this would be another one of these obscure things that is used in a selective manner, maybe as an excuse when they can't find some other reason to crack down on a student party or something like that. So since we have the fire marshal here, I would like to know how many of these one-year permits, fire permits for recreational fires at multifamily homes have been issued since that ordinance was implemented. I don't know, was it 2 years ago now? It's been a while. I was here in person, so that was pre-pandemic. But I always got the impression that they probably were never actually going to issue any of these. It's like, you know, when you have a solution looking for a problem. I mean, I don't know that a lot of our home fires were caused by recreational fires, but anyway, since we have the fire marshal here, it'd be nice if you could ask him how many of these permits have actually been issued since the ordinance was implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's a surprise question. I don't know if you're prepared to answer that or not, but.
And 6 of them a year. Every year, for the most part, there's between 5 or 6 that get issued throughout the entire year. In 2021, we did have 2 unregistered, we'll call them, recreational fires that were near a house that did cause damage to the house that we had to respond to. But those are the only 2 that we have documented in the last, well, actually 3 years since the fire code was adopted.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else in the chambers wants to comment on this item? Questions? Okay. Seeing no more comments, thank you.
Thank you.
The recommended action is a motion to offer the ordinance for first reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Decker. Any discussion, Commission? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The ordinance has been offered for first reading. Next is item H3, City Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of a notice of intent resolution for the issuance of 2023 water supply system revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $15 million.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Is there a staff report on this item?
No, but we have our CFO, Steve Vicenzi, available if there are any questions. Just want to give a little bit of overview. Items 3 and 4 are both bond issuances. So these are bond issuances that already take into account the projects that were presented or are being presented and built into the rates. So it's consistent with that.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Questions for staff from my colleagues here on the Commission? Don't see any. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to comment on this item? If so, please come to the podium, give us your name, where you live in the city, and you'll have 3 minutes. Seeing no one, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Cooney,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Pradel. Any discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The resolution has been adopted. Next is item H4, City Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of a notice of intent resolution for 2023 wastewater system revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $6,250,000.
Thank you. And I assume no special report on this, but staff are available for questions, right? All right. Any questions for staff from Commission members? Anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this item? See no one. The recommended action is a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Hess. Any discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The resolution has been adopted. Now we have an additional item, which is regular agenda H5, was consent agenda G6. Manager Ritzma.
Approval of a resolution, or approval of a grant in the amount of $1 million to the Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Services from coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds received from the U.S. Department of Treasury under the American Rescue Plan Act for the acquisition, rehabilitation, and resale of 14 single-family homes to low-income households.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. So I know that you weren't intending to make a presentation, as this was on the consent agenda. However, are there staff here that will be able to answer questions for the
Yes.
Commission?
Yes, there are.
Questions for staff? Commissioners? Commissioner Decker?
Hello, how are you?
What about now? Oh, there's power. I'm good. How are you?
So yeah, I just wanted to get a little bit more of the background of what's happening with the KNHS housing. From what I can understand, I know that it's to, purchase some more homes that will help with the lack of housing that we have here within the city of Kalamazoo. I'm just wondering if you can give us a little background of how this came about and how they're going to be working with the city.
Yes. So in 2021,
I'm sorry, just to interrupt. Did you have an opportunity to introduce yourself?
No, thank you.
Okay, and who you represent, that'd be great.
I am Sherilyn Parsons, Housing Development Supervisor. I also invited staff from Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Services in case there's specific questions for programming that you would have for them.
Thank you.
So this program, this opportunity came about in 2021, and what happened there was an underperforming rental portfolio that, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, had suffered great losses, both in the preservation of the units, in the stability of the tenants that were in there, and then because of the moratorium, also it suffered a lot of just rental losses. And so this private landlord approached KNHS about the purchase of this, and KNHS, as a nonprofit housing organization with a mission of home ownership in the core neighborhoods in the city of Kalamazoo, approached the city and other partners that they had to try to secure the rental portfolio for the full rehabilitation of each of the units, and then to sell the units back on the open market for affordable home ownership.
What do you think, or do they estimate about what the price would be for one of these homes?
Yeah, so the numbers that were presented to us through our gap financing option is how they came in talking to the city. It's an overall $2.4 million project. That's with the purchase price and the rehabilitation. And then the post-market analysis for sale that they received was just shy of an average of just shy of $89,000 per home. So for the city's funding of $1 million to get 14 affordable homes for ownership for under $100,000 is something that we were very pleased to partner with.
How long do you think the rehab would take, and when would a family, I guess, what would be the process for a family to go through this application process to be possibly vetted for one of the homes? I do see in here that they'll definitely be doing a system of choosing individuals. How will KNHS choose a family for the home?
Thank you for leading me into that. I'm going to ask someone from KNHS to come in to explain their process. Matt? Introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Matt Milzarek, also a Kalamazoo resident, but the Director of Neighborhood Services at KNHS. So we have a large pipeline of residents who are looking to become homeowners. So for this particular program, yes, we are listing these, but we have a large pipeline of folks who come through our homeownership class and our homeownership coaching who are the interested buyers in these.
With that homeownership coaching, do you also teach financial health, and do you stay with them for so long to make sure that they'll be able to stay in this home?
Absolutely. We actually start with financial readiness coaching. We have a class and then one-on-one coaching, and then you can graduate from that to the homeownership course. And we stay with people as long as it takes. I believe we closed on a house last week, and that resident was with us for 3 or 4 years working with the coach till they reached that goal.
Are you guys funding these loans? Are you your own funder for the mortgages per se on the houses, or do you?
We do not intend that, no. These would likely be just in the market mortgages.
I would like to add one thing to their plate. So it is also important to note with these dollars that there is an expectation of long-term affordability. So KNHS does have the capacity, and they also already have the infrastructure within their organizations within their organization to file all the necessary documentation that would ensure the compliance of long-term affordability within these units.
Thank you. I know we all know that we have a lack of housing here. An individual should be able to have a choice to live where they choose. So, you know, I appreciate you guys working with the city and being able to bring more affordable housing and being able to take homes. I'm assuming that all of these homes were vacant when you got them from this landlord?
So they weren't all vacant, given that we were coming out of the pandemic and there was a moratorium on evictions. They weren't all vacant, and they were not all occupied by tenants either.
Okay, so do you think that some of the homes that still had individuals in them, were they taking precedence over ones that have gone through the training? Are you working with these individuals so we're not displacing them as we're doing this?
Great question. Absolutely. Yes, there are some owners that were actually following their lease, have expressed a desire to purchase the home that they are currently within, and they are working through the process to get mortgage ready to be able to purchase the home that they've been renting.
Okay. Just one other quick question. This is more for KNHS. We always hear that there's a shortage of particular trades when it comes to construction and rehabbing of homes. Are you working, or I'm assuming that you are, and I believe that you are working with individuals and hiring individuals and giving apprentices to individuals that are looking to get into that type of field?
So with this, due to the procurement methods required by the federal government, these will be put out to bid. However, we do actively work on a regular basis to grow the contractor pool in our community. Specifically, the city has some efforts with minority and historically underserved residents, contractors, and we meet with them and their groups, and we hope once those folks get licensed that they will be bidding on these, and we certainly hope they will win those bids.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Juarez.
Yeah, I actually had the opportunity to go through the first-time homebuyers class. Me and my wife, it was a 2-day class, and we learned a lot, right? And kind of my background coming from poverty and taking these classes, a lot of information that was given to us, like I wasn't taught as a kid all these things, right? The different type of mortgages, the debt to ratio income, the interest rates, all kinds of things, right? And so I really do appreciate the program and the classes because they do really help people, right? Not just that, the financial coaching that is there, right? I think that's one of the biggest things that is a huge component to solving poverty is financial literacy. If we know how to manage money, we know how to use it in a way where it benefits us, right? And so I do appreciate that. One of the questions I did have, like let's say if you sell these houses, the money you get from selling the houses, does that go back into the programs, or how does that money be used?
Yeah, so also a great question. So the way the Performa, the financial data that came into us, this program actually breaks even, and KNHS is coming to the table with some of the dollars to support this. So upon the sale of these, they will be paying off some of the loans that they had to take out to be able to do this type of program. So that is why programs or opportunities such like this are so important to be able to partner with our nonprofits, because they have the opportunities to bring additional staff capacity as well as leverage funds that they have access to, but also bring their own financial capacity to the table so that it truly is a partnership in building affordable opportunities, homeownership opportunities.
The other thing, I know Commissioner Decker was talking about individuals who are already living in the homes, who were abiding by their leases, and some of this money is being secured to rehab. Are some of those houses being rehabbed? That they get to the individuals who are living in the house? who are abiding by their leases, are those houses getting rehab for those individuals to?
They are.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So due to the pandemic and really just the state of what some of the private landlords were dealing with not being able to capture any of the rent or do their traditional methods of turnover with their properties, this particular landlord was not able to keep up with the properties in the way that you would want properties to be kept up. So all of these units are being rehabilitated, and they will all be with systems, electric systems and heating and cooling systems that will stay in place with the homeowner. They'll be able to. What's your goal as far as there's no rehab in 5 years, 8 years?
Yes, we have a 10-year actually, where we don't want any of the major systems in a home to need to be updated. So, if someone buys one of our homes for the next 10 years, their roof or their furnace or, those major systems are good to go. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, KNHS, for doing this. What you guys do is not just bricks and mortar, but you revitalize neighborhoods. And that's the most important key to what we're trying to do within this city. When I listen to the infant mortality rate, housing is intrinsically connected to that. When we talk about safe sleep, it's connected to having quality, affordable, safe, and permanent housing. So what you're doing, appreciate it so much, and know that you are being seen, and we love what you're doing. And it's a heavy lift, but I'm honored to support this.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Commissioner Pradel.
Good evening. Thanks for you both for being here. I'm just wondering if you could just talk about, help us kind of understand the case for this strategy over, just complete from scratch construction, and just talking about some of the market forces that make this, something that makes more sense with limited resources than, say, building from 14 homes from scratch.
You want to start or me? Sure. You start. Yeah, please.
I view the answer to this as sort of multifaceted. On the nuts and bolts dollars, it would cost more because you would be tearing these structures down to build new housing, and that does come with quite a cost. Not just in need of subsidy, but also in development dollars. This project could easily cost another $1 million or more in necessary lending, borrowing dollars, I should say. Also, part of this is to promote home ownership in the neighborhood, and the north side is hemorrhaging homeowners. I mean, it's a problem. They have lost a lot of homeowners over the last decade. So this is part of our effort to combat that and get more homeowners where there were historically homeowners and now they've been rentals. Getting real specific to this portfolio, this was going to be sold whether any of us were here doing what we're doing, and we all know often what happens to these large landlord portfolios. They go from one landlord to another, and the disinvestment continues. So this was our way on a small scale to come in and stop that cycle. Yeah,
and part of the city's housing strategy, actually, in sort of addressing kind of the continuum of housing, part of our housing strategy is to preserve existing housing stock where it can be preserved. The existing infrastructure and housing is part of the character and the flair of our neighborhoods, and we want to respect that, encourage that, and build that. So where we can preserve our existing housing stock, we are going to make every effort to do that.
You kind of touched on this a little bit as well, but even with the housing prices sort of peaking and coming down a little bit, we're still seeing record housing prices, significantly higher interest rates than we've seen in a very long time. And, I think one of the aftermaths, unintended consequences of the pandemic that concerns me is that, the home ownership gap and the intergenerational gap, wealth gap, especially for people of color and low-income families is going to completely widen if we don't take intervention strategies like this. And so can you speak a little bit about how you see this strategy kind of fitting into working against that tide?
Yeah, so I'll take that one. So with preserving in this particular strategy that we're doing right now, we are looking to build housing homeownership opportunities. We're looking to preserve existing housing stock. But with this strategy, we are also looking to stabilize and rebuild a neighborhood market. So this is a concentrated pool or bundle of properties. It's within a five block area. So if we were to just sort of incrementally 1 house, 2 house, 3 house, we're not impacting the neighborhood to the point where we are starting to stabilize that so that we're preserving wealth for the existing homeowners. So this is also honoring the existing homeowners and building opportunity to maintain and build the wealth. As is reflective, Commissioner Decker asked about the end sales price. This is still very affordable sales price, and it's reflective of what the neighborhood market is doing, that it's the sales price that it is. So for those families that are able to get into this opportunity, they're going to be able to see more of the traditional wealth building that owning a home brings, and that is part of the housing strategy as well.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Thoughts? Commissioner Juarez.
Just a quick comment. I like truly deeply appreciate that, like creating that home ownership opportunities because, and especially with a large pool of houses, because we see that all the time in our neighborhoods. Corporations or companies come in from out of state, California, Arizona, and buy up all these houses and don't give two craps about our community. They're looking at the bottom line, right? And so, for me, I think it's a awesome strategy to combat that, right? Because we got to care for our own here first, right? And so, I just really deeply appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. And to maximize the opportunity for impact is something that we echo, and I believe KNHS does too.
Commissioner Decker.
This is just a comment, kind of going on what Commissioner Juarez says, and also Ms. Parsons, and also Commissioner Hoffman, when you talk about, revitalizing a neighborhood. And this is when our neighborhood associations and our neighborhoods can come in and they can apply for, again, the CBDG grants, to start to do updates on their homes that they also live in. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand. Refurbishing and revamping and rehabbing a home brings, I believe, more pride to a neighborhood and to families that are having homes. And again, also knowing that, the city has certain funds to help homeowners that are in those same areas to also update and upkeep their homes is also a blessing and a plus too.
Yes, thank you for saying that, because I do want the commission to note that. So this strategy, KNHS started this strategy in 2021. From 2021 to date, they have been able to leverage through their homeowner rehabilitation programs. 38 homeowners in this same target area have received housing preservation or rehabilitation opportunities. So it is a very impacted strategy.
Other comments or questions? This time from the commission? Commissioner Pradel.
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment. I just want to share that, you guys do tremendous work in the community, and I appreciate everything you're doing. The other thing is the comments about this as being $1 million. To me, where you put your dollars speaks to your values, right? And we know that we prioritized our top 5 priorities, and housing is at the top of that list. If you just pulled one of us up on the street, I guarantee every one of us 7 would bring housing, if not the one, definitely number 2 issue that matters to us in the community. So I'm really pleased to see that we're doing this, and even though it may be 14 units, that's 14 families who will, have a home and a stable home and a place that they can trust and rely on for a better part of a decade or more without any issues. And so, that's amazing. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Commissioner Prado.
And 14 invested neighbors and residents that are solid core in those neighborhoods, so.
All right, well, thank you once again, Sherilyn Parsons and Matt Mazarek from KNHS for spending time with us this evening talking about this important topic. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
One thing I just want to highlight here is that we have a value and we have a vision, but you also have to be opportunistic, and that's what we're talking about here. There just happen to be some properties that were available because they are for sale, and so this particular set of properties may not have been envisioned some years ago, but just having the value, having the vision, and having the capacity is what gives us the opportunity to take advantage of these opportunities. So thank you, KNHS, for leading on that and helping the city to fulfill, what our desire is here. That's very, very important. So, commissioners, the requested action is approval of a grant in the amount of $1 million to KNHS, Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Services. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman,
Second. Go ahead.
supported by Commissioner Decker. I guess, do we take public comment on this?
Well, you can take it after the motion's been made, that's fine.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, Jim Ritzma. All right, so motion has been made and supported. Is there anyone here in the chambers who'd like to comment on this item?
Yes, good evening again. William Rowland, Northside resident. Question, I've heard two analogies used tonight, or two comments. I've heard low-income housing, and I've heard affordable housing. Can someone please differentiate the difference to me? The understanding, help me with that. What is the difference between affordable and low-income?
Manager Ritzma, is there anyone on your team here that would like to?
Yeah, I'd call forward Ms. Parsons again.
Thank you for that question. The terms are used interchangeably.
Okay.
So low income sometimes carries a connotation to it of an income that is not a working family, and affordable tends to just bring that term into everybody's language. So thank you for that. And I too will be more mindful to use the same language. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I asked that question because, obviously, anytime you start saying low income versus affordable, it brings two different connotations to mind. Affordable, sometimes to me, when I hear affordable, I think in those homes that are $200,000, $250,000 below. And when I hear low income, I heard the 89,000. That's the number that kind of puts in my head. But I'd also like to extend something to those of you who are elected officials. When we're doing campaigning, I see faces. We're walking through, I get to meet and greet a lot of people who are running for a commission in the neighborhood. I would invite you to do likewise on a non-election time. Come through and talk to those of us who are citizens, to talk about what other concerns we might have in our neighborhoods, what we would like to see from our elected officials in a setting that may not be as formal as this. We are still here. We'd love to see your face in our communities, talking to us as residents, similar as there's your campaign trails. Talk to us about because there are so many other things that we may not talk about here tonight that are not on your agenda, that we might be able to share what concerns the neighborhoods have that might also be vital to the rejuvenation of neighborhoods. Is that okay? I extend that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the chambers that wants to comment on this item?
Good evening, Jeff Messer, city resident. Responding to the last citizen's question about what is the income qualification to purchase one of these homes, the agenda report says the purchase is restricted to households earning 80% or less of area median income. So, and his other question, I do recall that Don Cooney and another commissioner or two held a listening session at NACD earlier this year. So the commissioners do that sometimes. Maybe we just need to do a better job of advertising those. And finally, since I'm up here anyway, the $1 million that the City Commission has about to allocate comes from $38.4 million in federal pandemic relief that the city received. And I guess the public would like to know what other allocations from this pandemic relief money has the City Commission made or plans to make. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else want to comment?
Good evening, Commissioners. I heard one of you ask about what's happening with the current occupants of the homes. I did some digging with some help with someone, and as of this year so far, 4 of the tenants are being evicted. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that.
Thank you.
Matt Milzarek, city resident. Just wanted to speak to a comment that was just made. We were able to assist everyone who moved out of these homes with a grant from United Way. They were able to help us out, and we were able to give first month's rent and security deposit to everyone who is no longer in these homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chambers want to comment on this item? All right, we've already had a motion made and supported. Any discussion here? The Commission? Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you so much. I just really want to speak to how this came about, and I would be remiss if I did not recognize the previous executive director of KNHS, Matt Lager, and myself who were working on this project. And it was something that we were very connected to and to those families that were living in those homes. And we were able to write a grant to do relocation for families that were not going to remain in those homes. And I'm just glad to hear that that is still rolling out. The other thing is, I think this is time for us to have a conversation about out-of-town landlords and property owners coming into our city, buying up everything, and then taking those dollars outside of Kalamazoo. We need to hold them more accountable at the city level. I don't know how we can do that, but we need to really look at that, because our communities and our neighborhoods are being destroyed, not because of people who live here, but for those dollars going outside of our community, even outside of our state. So I'm hoping we can soon start having conversations about that. And in this type of work, the need is so great. Duplication is necessary, and not everybody is going to always be happy with what happens. So we just have to be steadfast and continue to do what we know is best for our communities and revitalize our core neighborhoods. Because this investment has happened for so long, it's time for us to overinvest.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Commissioner Juarez.
Yeah, I just echoed that, those comments by Commissioner Hoffman. And I truly believe that transformation of our community starts with us, right? Like the decisions we make up here, right? And I think just with these 14 homes, it's so transformational. It's transformative because it's intentional, right? And so not just people who are buying up and companies who are buying up the houses who live outside of our city, but landlords. I think this sets the bar for them too, to step up and say, okay, we're looking at good quality housing, right? That's being rehabbed and taken care of for our families, right? And so I think just in that sense, the housing conversation, like I think that time is now, right? So figuring out what that looks like, because we've always been about making sure, and I've heard this statement, a strong Kalamazoo needs a strong downtown. And I truly believe that, right? I do. Just as much as Kalamazoo having a strong downtown, we need strong core neighborhoods. And if housing looks the way it looks now, then that's an issue, right? And so, yeah, I'm with you. Let's start having that conversation about housing on a different sense.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you. And again, I also echo what Commissioner Hoffman and Commissioner Juarez says. It's really about holding landlords accountable. But then as a city, we need to make sure that we have the people that are in place, so when we get a call, that we're able to get out there, do what we need to do, assess the situation, really have someone that's following up and looking at these issues and looking at these concerns that tenants have with landlords, and just to make sure they're not just washed under the rug, or if we don't have enough staff to go out there to get to one, or if we're falling behind. So I'm actually kind of hoping, as we went through kind of the budget, some of the budget information today, you know, really looking at some of these positions that we have within here that we are proposing to, you know, see about adding, and looking at that department and seeing if we need to add more people to that department, if we need to add more staff to that department. Because as long as we let it slide, it's going to continue to happen. But if we can nip it or put some real consequences behind actions, nothing's going to change.
Any other discussion? So just to bring us back here to this motion, good broad-ranging discussion, I appreciate that. But what we are doing this evening with this motion is approving a grant, a $1 million grant for Kalamazoo Neighborhood Housing Services for the acquisition, rehabilitation, resale of the 14 single-family homes. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The grant is approved. Next, reports and legislation. Manager Ritzma.
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next on our item is unfinished business. This is a continuation of the city attorney selection process, because our good attorney, Clyde Robinson here, is seeking to retire from the city. And this is a process that we began in earnest last week. We had interviews, we reviewed resumes, we saw some recommendations, and we decided at that time to push off whatever decision, recommendation we might make to this meeting this evening. So that's the next item on our agenda. Any commissioners want to start discussion? I'll just warm us up here just a little bit. I mean, it's just an opportunity for some open discussion, from some deliberation, and then maybe we can talk about, presuming that we feel comfortable about making some choice tonight, then we could talk about a process for making that choice. I have some thoughts about that. I know that, Clerk, we had some review sheets that we used when we started this out, so we probably still have those in our possession. In addition, Clerk Borling has just provided a very simple sheet that he could pass around for us. I would suggest that if we get to that point of for example, writing down our first choice, that we just do that, write one person's name on that sheet. If we get to that point, decide to kind of pull ourselves that way. So prior to that, discussion, thoughts from commission members? Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to say to community, thank you so much for all of your input, for your showing up last week to this, to the interview and to the meet and greet. We got very good information and feedback from community, so I just wanted to say thank you for that.
I appreciate that very much, Commissioner Hoffman. I think, I miss saying that, as I think that was entirely the comfort level of this commission, is not only giving us a time to think about it, but giving a few days for community response to come in, which it did. And we appreciate everyone that took time to reach out in whatever way and provide that to us. Very, very helpful. Obviously, a very important decision, and it's not like we have 6 months of working with somebody in order to base that on and work it out. So with any interview process, We're relying on a fairly short amount of interaction and feedback and references, but that community piece is very, very helpful. Other thoughts? Commissioner Hess.
The community piece is very helpful, and I've heard from several and emails and phone and talking with you in person. It's loud and clear from the community that while the city attorney represents the city as the city's attorney, it's very important to have them understand the issues of diversity and equity and racism and be willing to confront all of those as they go about their work on behalf of the city and the commission and the agenda of the commission, which is with housing and equity and really looking through our issues and fighting for our issues. As one of the candidates said, having a hill you're willing to die on. So we want to make sure that we talk about these things, that we make sure that the environment that whoever we hire is going to be a positive one in the city attorney's office for years to come. And I'll just finish. I believe they're all credentialed. They're all well-credentialed attorneys. And should they come to this position, would come with experience, with ethics, with integrity, and a desire to do the job, and especially to do the job in Kalamazoo. So I want to thank the subcommittee that worked on this along with the Michigan Municipal League and Jeff Mueller from the Michigan Municipal League, who put a lot of time and effort into this, as well as Shelley Dusek from our Human Resources Office. So thank you.
Other comments, commissioners? Commissioner Pradel.
I have some feedback on each individual as I've kind of processed, but I think like where I'd kind of like to start off, if it's okay, is just talking about like all the candidates. And so this weekend I was just trying to think to myself, like, why does this feel so hard? And I was kind of going back to just like during my day job, like when we're interviewing, like when these situations feel tough. And it kind of can't boil down to two things, right? In this situation, is it because it's tough because no one rises to the top, or is it tough because all are the type that would typically have risen to the top in a typical pool? And for me, what made it difficult for me in particular is that I think these are all pretty exemplary candidates in terms of just looking at the resume, whether it be the research they did or whatever, and also the wide range of where they come from and their experiences that make it kind of unique, where they're not one size fits all, if you will. I was particularly impressed about the fact that each of them really seemed to grasp like what we were most concerned about as a community. So it gave me faith that they were listening to the people at the meet and greet and comments that people made. Almost all of them talked about housing. Some talked about homelessness. Some talked about environmental justice. You name it. And they're all highly accomplished individuals. I think the thing that left me wanting some more, and this might have just been responses, maybe not answering as well as I could have, is just the DEI and anti-racist lens in terms of like the work that they're doing, the work that they've committed to, their organizations, and how they fit into that work wherever they're coming from. But I think the thing that also makes it kind of unique in making the decision is it's not like you're just weighing one thing. There were some candidates that really impressive at the meet and greet, and then there were some people who really showed up at the interview more than others. Some people had a resume where it's like, dang, that's an impressive resume. That's impressive. And then, then you get the community outreach. We had some people who wrote, like, if you put it, it'd be like 2 pages of a Word document that they emailed us on top of coming to the interviews and the meet and greets, which is impressive. And then you add it to the mix. Now we have this discussion. So you have all these things that make it kind of complicated to come to a decision. But I definitely would be eager to hear from everybody about like what stood out about pros and cons about each person to kind of help with that process.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel.
Yeah.
Commissioner Morris?
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things where I would love for the community to understand our position, right, and what we're, the severity of this is very important to us, especially when we're looking at candidates with that lens of DEI, right, and their experience and their context and their background. and the importance of that, and the uniqueness of Kalamazoo, and how it's different from where these candidates come from. Some of them said there were some similarities. Some of them said, you know, and have worked on difficult things in their cities and stuff. And I wish we had a broader pool of individuals that we could pick from. I'm kind of hesitant to be okay with Attorney Robertson leaving. Like, we should make a motion to keep him here, not let him go. But anyways, it's his time, right? And that's you know, that's good to know. And at the same time, like, almost a lot of the candidates, you can tell the difference between well-seasoned and veteran candidates than others, and you can tell from their experiences, you know, kind of how they carry themselves in the interview. But like, it almost didn't, it felt like, oh, this is a job I'm applying for, cool, awesome, I can do this. I didn't get the sense of like, I want to be part of Kalamazoo from any of the candidates. I didn't get that sense, that feeling like, ooh, I wish I could be part of this. Like, so when I was running for commissioner, you know, I was having a conversation with God, and I was like, God, you got the wrong guy. And he showed me all the beautiful things that Kalamazoo has to offer and why I'm still here. Out of all my brothers, I got 10 brothers and 3 sisters, I'm the only one who still lives here. Because I love Kalamazoo dearly. I'm in love with Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo is my home, right? My kids are born and raised here. I was born and raised here. And I want to make Kalamazoo a better place when I leave this place. You know, I come from those difficult neighborhoods. You know, I live on Washington Street, right where I grew up, and I started a gang when I was 15. Like, so part of me is looking for individuals who say, I want to make a change. I want to make a difference in Kalamazoo. And what I got to bring to the table is the gifts and the expertise I have are going to benefit this. Like, I wish we could see that enthusiasm in people, in these candidates. And it's, you know, it's one of those things where this is the pool we have to work with, right? I mean, I know Jeff and his team did an amazing job looking for candidates, right, all over the place. And it's one of those unique positions, right, that it demands a certain capacity, a certain expertise, a certain understanding to be able to fulfill those shoes, right? And so, you know, my heart's a little torn, and I wish we had candidates who were like gung-ho about making Kalamazoo a better place, right? And so that's just some comments I had, but nevertheless, we are here.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. Commissioner Decker?
Thank you. I was just kind of reading through some of my notes on some of the, or on our 3 candidates that I had, and just some of the points that I had written down were, again, I'm not going to name who they are, but, you know, one of them I saw was a leader and not a manager, and they want to know the why. Why are we doing this? You know, why are we moving forward? How are we moving forward? One that I did very much like and was drawn to was the willingness to fight, the willingness to go to bat and to fight for things, being able to give options, not just this is the way of the law, but really wanting to seek out how you can stay within the law but still get things done, I guess I could say. The other one, again, well-spoken, professional development, diversity. But for me, I just have to say there was one that really did stand out with the knowledge, with the expertise, with familiarity. And I also think that goes to saying of when each of these individuals went and had a meet and greet, so you say with the staff, you know, really being able to hear their feedback, because, you know, this is an individual that they will be working with, and they will be working with to support and protect the city. And you have to get along as in teams, really in order to have a successful and a functionable department, I believe. So there was one that did, I was kind of torn really between two, kind of going back and listening to their interview online and just kind of going back through my notes. I think I could say that I possibly have a decision, but I'm still willing to see what everybody else has to say.
Commissioner Hoffman.
I'm ready. I'm ready. So.
I appreciate that. Commissioner Prado?
I'm going to echo what you said, Commissioner Decker. I got to be honest with you. The person that is my number one is the person that surprised me the most, especially like leading up to the interview day. And I felt like showed up. But there was a couple of things that really stepped up to me. I want somebody who's hungry to fight for this community, all right? And something that this individual said, and I'll just say it was Mr. Porter, he said, take risks if needed and fight for it. And the quote that he used is he said, if we can push the envelope, let's do it. And sometimes that's what you have to do. You got to be willing to do that. And if you were worried that it's just words, he gave examples. He talked about in Oshtemo Township how there was a utility company that tried to do something that the residents didn't agree with, and he fought for them. He talked about the example about how there was an attorney general opinion that was going to impact Headley rules, and he fought it all the way to appeals, something that the attorney general was on the opposite side with them. Commissioner Hess, you talked about, I think you used the term like, die on the hill for something you believe in. And I think that shows the conviction of somebody who's going to, fight for what we believe in our value system and fight for us as a community. He also talked about an eagerness. He said he wants to move downtown. He wants to immerse himself right in the city. So that would be my number one choice right now.
Other comments from commissioners?
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, Vice Mayor.
Just a little thing. I think we've been spoiled here. We got an attorney here who is been excellent and is well respected through the state. And I think what makes people not look so great is that we're comparing him with the excellence of the attorney that we've had.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Cooney. Well, I'd just like to talk a little bit about my thinking process for getting here and the kinds of things that I consider in this space. And I agree with you, Commissioner Prado, that there's obviously three capable and competent people that we saw. And so that requires a careful evaluation of what is the actual experience that someone might have, what are they bringing to the table, and then what are they like as a human being, and are they approachable, and can they work as part of a team? I mean, this is a team sport right here. This is not a one-person sport. Not only do we have to work together as 7, we really have to work together as 657. I think the number's a little bit higher now for the city, but anyway, this is a team sport, and so we need a person who can represent but also be approachable, not only within the city, but more broadly in the community. So those are things that I watch as we're doing the meet and greet, as people are interviewing, and also there was an opportunity for our candidates to meet with the team they'll be working most directly with, right here in our own city attorney's office. It has some solid long-term members of that team. So I'm trying to think about all that, who they'll be working with, what skill set they bring, what kind of person are they, as far as I can tell, as a human being. And in addition, I just wanted to get back to you, Commissioner Waters, a little bit on the comments that you just made. And I just want to read a few things. We had some statements here, that came from some comments that the candidates had made, and that was provided to us here in this initial screening report. And I'm just reading 3 statements that one of the candidates provided. And that statement was, under final thoughts, it said, Kalamazoo is the jewel of Southwest Michigan. I would love to work as part of this team. I tip my hat to Kalamazoo for what it has done and what it is doing. That shows a little enthusiasm, I think, and maybe we didn't see, obvious enthusiasm maybe in some ways, unfettered enthusiasm, which I will say, certainly, as far as the whole commission is concerned, you certainly are a person who exhibits that on a regular basis. So maybe everyone doesn't present in that same way, but I think these are pretty enthusiastic statements. And so, even that said, it wasn't easy, and I have to say that I do appreciate that there was very intentional effort, which was very important to us, to cast a broad net in this search. And maybe we rushed over that a bit in listing all the ways that Michigan Municipal League reached out, all the organizations, all the attempts that were made, which were pretty darn comprehensive when you go through that list. I mean, the list went on, and I think there was a very intentional reach out asking for candidates for Kalamazoo. And as a result, we have these 3 candidates that we can make a decision about. So I guess at this point, if there's no further discussion, do we want to take a poll? Do we want to write a name down and pass it all to the clerk? Are people comfortable with that process? Clerk, are you okay with that, or?
We're not going to say out loud what we...
Well, it'll eventually get out loud, but I don't know how you want to manage this at this point.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize the question was for me. So I have these forms, each form has a candidate's, has the 3 candidates' names with a spot where you can mark an X, a spot at the top for you to put your name, because I think the city attorney would say that each commissioner's vote needs to go with them. And then after that, I can collect them, and I have a screen I can put up with the results.
Sounds good. Thank you, Clerk Boyle.
Yep, just put an X next to your selection.
Thank you.
Okay, well, normally I would read off the selections for each commissioner, but it is either their only selection or their first selection was, I'm sorry. There. So, James Porter was either the first selection or the only selection for every commissioner.
All right, thank you very much, Clerk Borley. All right, unanimous. Thank you, Commission. So we will have a motion that we need to make here, and the motion that will be in front of us is to make a conditional offer to the candidate who obviously secures the majority support from the Commission. We have that. The offer is conditional because it's critical to allow due diligence steps. So keep it in mind is that there has been an evaluation process that's occurred prior to the candidates coming here, but now that evaluation process is much deeper, more robust, and extensive. And those steps have to occur, and depending on the results of that, that would enable us to withdraw the offer depending on the results of that research. So the motion is, to initiate that action is direct the Michigan Municipal League Facilitator to extend a conditional offer of employment to James Porter and to commence a background investigation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Juarez. Any other discussion? Clerk Borley, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. This is not easy, and I just want to thank the Commissioner team that went through this together. And hopefully the extensive process will work out. I would be interested to know what the time frame is on that. Do you have a sense of that, Commissioner Duzick? I mean, HR Director Duzick? 4 weeks for background check. All right? It's getting close to, it's well before the end of January, so we're strict, we're great. Yeah. Thank you. All right, now we are down to the point of our agenda for commissioner comments. Commissioners, anybody like to start? Commissioner Hess?
I'm ready to go. First of all, so at the last commission meeting, I think my husband was here with his little Breakfast of Champions group, and unbeknownst to us all at the time, he had a fractured hip. So, so in the midst of doing interviews, while I was participating in the interviews, he was under the knife. And so I want to thank all the personnel at Bronson for being so amazing and repairing him better than ever. So big thanks to that, and hi, Jim. He watches on TV. Another thing, Pam Rowland, I want to thank you for being here. You are a gem and an asset to this community with the Kalamazoo Junior Girls, and your work with MLK Park is exemplary. I want to thank you for your comments today, but also I want to thank you for creating the tree lighting ceremony Friday night at MLK Park, and I couldn't be there because I was being a caregiver, and creating the memorial service for James, AKA Snake, who was homeless and who did take care of that park. And he was found frozen on one of the benches in MLK Park last week. So my prayers go out to him, his family, his loved ones, and all who are without homes on this evening. Thank you, Pam. Speaking of the listening sessions, and I'm sure Commissioner Decker and Commissioner Hoffman will say it as well, there will be one with the three of us, with Commissioner Tammy Ray, at the new Walnut and Park Diner on Portage Street on Wednesday at 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So come on out, and you can talk more about that too if you want, but I'm excited to hear from the community on issues that are important to you. I did attend the Zoom that one of the callers called in and asked about the Eagle and asked us to follow up with that regarding graphic packaging. I was on that Zoom, and as I was coming home from the hospital, and it was a hearing regarding the air quality enforcement action. There will be public comment on the air quality enforcement with Eagle until December 9th. And that can be done via email to wolfj2@michigan.gov or via voicemail to 517-284-0900, or there is a mailing address. You can find all this information at michigan.gov/EGLE. And if you have questions about the enforcement action, you can reach out to Jason Wolf, and again, that's the wolfj2@michigan.gov, and Monica Brothers at brothersm@michigan.gov with your questions. This was about the enforcement actions against graphic packaging since 2017. And the caller did ask if we had read Julie Rogers' statement that was read in this meeting. And yes, I do acknowledge that Eagle can't move fast enough, especially when it affects people's health in this community, but they do have to do their due diligence, and we do have to trust them that they are working on our behalf as quickly as possible. Lastly, I have a wonderful fifth grade class that I visit, and I said something about this last year, but it's a different class this year. Miss Walker's fifth grade class at Woodward School. These children are amazing. Miss Walker puts up a big paper on the board, and I talk to them about challenges and opportunities, about living in Kalamazoo, and I want you to see, I want you to hear what these children said about the challenges and opportunities about Kalamazoo, and they might sound familiar to you. Violence is a challenge. Food is a challenge. Littering, racism, bad attitudes, houselessness, kidnapping. I don't know about you, but when I was in fifth grade, I was not afraid of kidnapping. Clean water and air, theft, public health, panhandling, and assault. So these fifth graders named our top challenges in the city. It is not lost on our youth. Our youth are watching. Our youth are feeling, and our youth have a handle on what it's like to live in Kalamazoo. However, when I asked them about their opportunities and what's good about Kalamazoo, they said, the restaurants. So shout out to the restaurant community. But then they said the promise, the education available in Kalamazoo, the entertainment. They talked about generosity. They said, we have a generous spirit here in Kalamazoo. Our parks, the helpers. They talked about the helpers. They talked about good technology and sports. So they named it all, right? And they were able to say this. I had challenged them at the beginning so that they would pay attention and ask them who would like $5. And then I let it go and I said, just pay attention. Okay, so what was the first question I asked you? Girl raises her hand and she said, you asked us if we wanted $5. And I said, you get the $5. And she sat really quietly for a moment and she said, can I give this to somebody? I'm like, it's yours. You can do absolutely what you want with it. She said, I want to give it to somebody really special. And she got up and walked across the room, and she gave it to the teacher. She gave it to Miss Walker. That is the generosity of Kalamazoo. When I had walked into the classroom to talk to them on that day, Ms. Walker was talking about how they were going to have to raise funds to buy books. Whatever we can do, Kalamazoo, to help anyone in a classroom at any level in Kalamazoo, it is necessary. We need volunteers, we need mentors, we need people who donate, we need people who are going to be involved in their lives. These are our kids, and they know, they're watching, and they're listening. So I think our focus on youth is well spent, Commissioner Cooney, and I think we need to do better by our young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Other commissioners? Vice Mayor Cooney.
So, okay, the Upjohn report. It is, we've heard that before, we know the statistics, but to see every time we hear it, that 43% of our black children are born into poverty, and their chances of moving out of poverty when they grow up are minimal, negligible. How could that not be the most urgent thing we face in our city? So knowledge is for action, and we're getting the knowledge, we have the knowledge. We have to translate that into policy. The city can't solve this by itself, but we sure gotta look harder to see what we can do to alleviate this. Maybe we can be the catalyst to bring together the other organizations in the cities that are doing so many things. Maybe we can use our resources in strategic ways. Maybe we can secure other resources. Maybe we can advocate with the federal government. But I don't want to hear these same statistics next year, year after, and 10 years from now. We can't do that.
Anyone else want to make comments? Commissioner Braille?
Just wanted to take a moment. I'm so glad we were able to come to a decision tonight on the city attorney search. It's such a big deal for us as a community, and certainly for us. We work so closely with that individual, and so thank you all for that process. But I would especially want to give thank you to Mayor and Commissioner Decker for being a part of that process as well. It was great to serve with you on that subcommittee. I also want to thank Jeff Mueller from Michigan Municipal League, HR Director Dusick, and Deputy City Manager Jeff Chamberlain as well for all their support. And I really want to thank the applicants as well. You put a lot out there to apply for that position. It's very transparent and personal. And, effectively, once you're public, you put your cards on the table to say, hey, I'm looking for something. And that takes guts, and it takes guts to show up and do that. And, I want to thank them because them being a part of the process, the other candidates made it a stronger process because they were involved. But I especially want to congratulate Mr. Porter. Look forward to working with you as well. I was just thinking about the request just to respond to Eagle and the recent update they provided as well. And, I think, if I was to think through a process for myself of, what I would say to the people who are part of that process is move with the urgency as if your family lived and you were waiting. And if the response, if you can say in your heart of heart that if my family was there and waiting for that answer, and I am moving as quickly as possible and doing my greatest due diligence, then thank you. After thinking that through and your thought is if my family was there, and I could be moving faster, please move faster. And, I think the most important thing for me as I contemplate with it, Eagle and these regulators, they're not beholden to any company. They work for us, the people of Michigan, and they are the best of the best in the field. And as hard as it may be to do, I want to trust them in that process and hope that they know that urgency and feel that urgency and, take ownership and the responsibility of the fact of the importance of getting these kind of answers for the public. So I really appreciate the updates for the community, but I share the desire to get answers quickly, but I also recognize that maybe there's more that we don't know that they're trying to do their due diligence and respecting that. But I also wanted to, I've heard a number of times people say that, this commission hasn't shown any way of prioritizing. And I just wanted to take a minute to just share both from the 53rd Commission and the 54th Commission. In that time, you have an order task force, quarterly reporting, over a dozen sensors with real-time data that anybody can access at any time, a reporting mechanism on the website if people feel that there's anything awry, millions of dollars of capital improvements to our infrastructure process in our reclamation plant, staff time devoted to work with the recent discharge spill from our public services team, including responding with a violation notice for doing such. And I think, is that enough? Absolutely not. But in terms of, what I want to see the city doing is continuing to find solutions and work to find solutions to better what we can control, and lay our values where we can do those things. And, and from, the response for me in terms of that recent discharge violation is like, look, GP, step up. If I knew that people were showing up at a public meeting in a public setting like this, almost every single meeting, sharing their concerns, sharing their frustrations, with their skepticism, I would do everything in my power to go above and beyond whatever minimum I've been asked to do, by regulators or consultants that I've hired. And, that's my message to them, is that, you are a corporate citizen in this community, and step up and be that corporate citizen that in today's 2022, that our society expects our corporate citizens to, act in. So that's all I'll say about that. And then lastly, if there was like an issue of my life that I care about, it's young people. And to see that statistic of 34% just rips me apart. There is, as Vice Mayor Cooney said, probably no greater issue that we can do to transform this community, I truly believe, is investing in our young people. And, I'm just going to continue to echo of, let's put the foot on the gas in terms of supporting our young people and investing. This last summer, we invested a record $2.1 million in our youth. We heard just from the money allocated to KidNet that there were 3,400 kids that were impacted this summer from that work. That's just spectacular. And that's going to be how transformation is going to happen with our young people. And so I'm excited to continue to put our foot on the gas with that. But other than that, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. I'll let the two of you decide. You going to go, Commissioner Decker?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a real quick question. Did we skip the new business section? I think we went right to commissioner comments.
There was nothing under new business.
Okay. I didn't know if I could add something, but I will add it as I finish my conversation. So, listening to the individuals that came to speak here today, and also reviewing the city's assessment of diversity, equity, and inclusion within the city of Kalamazoo and our team members, and within the organization. What I heard and what I hear and what I continue to hear is that we need a reform within how we do things on a daily basis, on a yearly basis within the city. And with that, there's a couple things that I'd like to speak to. If we could definitely have, I believe it was Mr. Rowland, had some reports. I don't know if you're able to get those reports to our DEI officer. That would be wonderful. Not sure if City Attorney Robinson can also pull those up for us. However, we can get those to our DEI officer here within the city. We are committed to becoming an anti-racist organization. And I believe for us to really I believe in order for us to really do that, some things have to change. And with that, I would like to, if we could, City Manager Ritzema, put on the agenda for our next meeting is to talk about how we can incorporate a DEI officer into the charter of the city of Kalamazoo to make sure that that is something that will stay within the city going forward. And it's also, it goes to the people. The people are the ones that are going to be the ones that are going to get this into the charter and are going to help us get this into the charter if it's so what they choose. I was reviewing the charter today, and they have many things that are in there: city attorney, city manager, finance director. Let's get a DEI director in there too. Because as Commissioner Hoffman said, it's only one component when you talk about the housing. That's one component of an entire spectrum, and DEI is one component of an entire spectrum of equity, diversity, and inclusion within an organization. Usually I speak a little first, but I was kind of corn. Excuse me. We lose many lives. As the gentleman on the bench in the park that was houseless, that froze to death. That's not okay. That's not okay. And as a commission, I know that we are going to continue to do what we can and to do more to step up to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So it's just time to step up, do what we got to do. Let's get it done. We can do this. We have the ability, we have the power to change things within the city. And it's all going to start with us. It's all going to start with our appointees. And then from there, it's going to trickle down into our organization, which is the City of Kalamazoo government. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Hoffman.
So one thing that I heard this evening, and it came from a retiree of the city, he said, we as citizens don't leave. We don't leave. 30-year retiree, still seeing the same things that have been happening, continue to happen because we say we want to do something different working within the same system. That is crazy. Sorry, I'm using that word, but it is. How do we think we're going to be able to change things when we're still operating within a system that was created to have barriers? We have to dismantle this, and we have to stand up and say, it's going to get messy. It's going to be hard, but this is the right and just thing to do. A gentleman dying, moving on to the next life because he had no place to live. We can do something about that. That is unacceptable. We have solutions here, but we continue to operate in this place where, well, we have to do this, we have to check this box, and we have to check this box. And while we're checking boxes, someone passed on to the next life. That's not okay. It really isn't. And to our resident and retiree, I hear you. I hear you. And I'm committed to doing something different. Even if it gets me in trouble, I'm okay with trouble, as long as it's good trouble. Okay, so let's get it. It's time. Enough is enough. We can do something about that. When I look at 34% and 41% will never leave poverty, that says a lot about the structure within this community. When I see 43% of Black children are in poverty and 23% of white kids are in poverty, what is that about? It's time that we be about what we say we're about. And I'm not saying any other commission didn't do and didn't try. I don't want to try anymore. Let's endeavor. Let's be committed to doing something different, even if it's hard. We come back to the table and we get it done. And if we can't get it done, we keep coming back to the table and we dismantle some stuff. I really want to curse y'all, but I'm going to try to stay proper up here. So, yes, we can do something. We don't need to lose another life because someone doesn't have some place to stay.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Commissioner Morris?
Yeah, I was, when the incident happened down at the bus station with the shooter on the bus, I was invited down there, and Mayor, you were invited down there, a couple other people, and we were praying for the situation and the people who are affected by that, right? And one of the things that I felt like the Lord was speaking to my heart was that we as human beings we've tolerated death. And we shrug it off with no regards. And it's one of those things where, you know, it's everywhere. When I ran for mayor years ago, it was maybe like 4 years ago almost. I'm so glad I didn't get that position at the time. God bless your heart, Mayor Anderson, because that was a difficult season, you know. But one of the things that I ran and I was talking about, and people would always like turn their face up to me when I would make this certain comment. And it was, you know, Kalamazoo has a heart condition. And we need to check our hearts, each and every one of us. Because being okay with that, you know, man dying on the park bench there's some of us who just, well, we have no concern or no consideration of it. And so again, I will repeat that. We have a heart condition. We do. It's not just the government. It's churches. It's businesses. It's education. It's the healthcare. It's everything. We have a heart condition. And we need to do a little bit of introspection. And why is that? Why is it that we're so divided on certain situations, in certain circumstances, certain ideologies? Why are we so divided when we have so much in common? You know? And what I realize is when people unite, how strong they get. In times of disparities, we've seen our communities unite. The Uber driver, the Uber shooter, right, who brought that calamity, and you know how people united, and the individuals who were the bicyclists who were ran over by the drunk driver, how the community united. And what is a distaste for me is that we unite after the fact. Something has to happen first, and then we say, hey, let's figure this out, guys. And it's one of those things where we have to realize we have so much statistics. We know. We have the information. We have the numbers. And we can run them forwards and backwards. And they're going to be the same thing. It's until we start to actually challenge ourselves. I got to start with me. And you guys heard that, or you guys have heard me say that. I got to start with me first. What am I missing in my own life? What am I not looking at in my own life? Where am I not taking advice or wisdom in my own life? Where am I causing harm in my own life? Right? Till you start with the person in the mirror, you're never going to be able to help the next person next to you. And so I appreciate all the comments from the commissioners and the work. There's so much good work happening, right? There's so much good work happening. We can do more. Yeah, that's true. How do we do that? That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. Just as a reminder here, on the business side of things, we do have a meeting 1 week from tonight. It starts at 5 o'clock. It's our budget session. I think we're all going to be planning for a few hours for that. So that is our very next meeting. It'll be focused on budget. And of course, then our next regular business meeting is on the 19th, is that right? Okay, so we'll have a business meeting here on the 19th. I just wanted to say it's an honor and a privilege to serve with this commission, a group of dedicated, caring people who are not in it for themselves and their own aggrandizement, but deeply care about the community and everyone that lives here. So I'm blessed and honored to spend this time together and be talking about these important things. I love you, Kalamazoo. We are adjourned.